Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Alrighty, let's get started. Last time I think I left off telling you that we started at our new IVF clinic and I was so excited and couldn't wait to get started. So let's see where we are at. I take notes just because it was such a long journey and I just want to make sure that I don't forget anything and that I have a chance to go over all of it with you. So let's see. We started our first round of IVF and it was going to cost about $18,000. So it was pretty pricey and we had to sit down with the supervisor of the office or the office manager and go over the cost and what we could do. And they actually offer loans for the IVF, which I told you before, and we were both really young, didn't have much credit, so the interest rate on the loans was going to be like an insane amount, making it really hard for us to pay off the loans. And I then was like, oh no, this isn't gonna work. How are we gonna be able to do this if we can't afford it? And I began talking with the office manager and she's like, let's see what we can do in-house. It was actually at the start of a new year, and at the start of the new year they hand out so much money to people who need help doing IVF, and they like work as a team and offer different options, in-house options, so you can do an in-house loan, which is what we ended up doing, so there wasn't any interest and you would just pay so much monthly, and they ended up taking so much off of it. So I think we ended up paying around $12,000 for the first round, and then it wasn't terribly bad and I wasn't so stressed out, because in my heart I knew that IVF was gonna work, or I thought it was going to work for us. So I was willing to spend the money and put our savings towards it and do everything that we could do to get pregnant and start our family and our lives together. So after sorting through all the money and dealing with that end of things, we got to start the process. So I started my shots and ultrasounds, and I'd go in. First it started off, I went in and they cleaned out my uterus. They took out the endometriosis, they took out the fibroid that was in there, and started from a clean slate so that we had the best chances of conceiving. And as soon as they do that, they want you to get started right away so that you don't have a chance to possibly grow scar tissue or have the endometriosis and the fibroids come back. And so it was like bing bam boom from there. We were like, I know I tried to, but I can never do it. I have never been good at that. And so from then on, it was just ultrasounds, getting in, them showing me how to do my shots, which I pretty much already had the rundown on how to do my shots, because I was giving myself shots before in my stomach, and it's the same thing. I also had to do progesterone shots, and I had to do that in my butt, which was really hard, and my husband was too scared to do them. He was afraid he was gonna hurt me, and the needle is a lot bigger, and so that was kind of tough, but I would do anything to get pregnant. So I was willing to do the shots in the stomach, the shots in the butt, and you know, the shots in the butt hurt a lot worse than the ones in the stomach. My butt was very sore, and it actually got like my skin, it got like bumps underneath, because you'd have to do them in the same spots. You would rotate different sides, left right, but that didn't seem to help much because you're just doing so many repetitive shots. And you just do them every week, and they keep taking your hormone levels and see where you are at in your ultrasounds and see how your eggs are doing. And then when your eggs are ready, and you would go in and they would put you under and pull your eggs or retrieve your eggs, the egg retrieval. And it's just a really, really quick process. And then you wake up, they tell you how many they got. And I want to say the first time that we did it, they got 6 that were big enough with the medicine, which sometimes women go in there and they'll have 25 with that medicine. So I was kind of bummed out because they go through a lot after they retrieve them. It's not like then they connect them with the sperm and they are ready to go. They connect them with the sperm, then they got to see if they, they grow, and then they freeze them. Then they got to thaw them when the day that you come in to have them put in utero, and sometimes they don't make it through the freezing and thawing process. So it's just a lot, and it's really stressful. At the very end of it, I did end up having 5 left, so I was pretty excited. And on the day that I went in, my husband could not get off work, which was a bummer. My aunt and uncle who raised me ended up taking me, and I had to drive about 3 hours to meet the doctor at the special clinic where he does the IVF and puts the embryo in utero, because at that point they consider it an embryo. Once the egg and the sperm is met, it's grown, they freeze it and they thaw it, and you are ready. And once that embryo, you're awake for this process, and it's like kind of like going to the gynecologist and getting a pap. You put your legs up, it's like bing bam boom, put that embryo in. And we had a little bit of a disagreement. I wanted 3 in, and he's like, nope. He's like, they can split off. He's like, you put 3 in, you can get pregnant with 6. And I'm like, yeah, but none of them could take, and then we just spent $12,000 and we're not gonna be pregnant. So I was really stressed out. I was like, I'd rather be pregnant with, twins and have a higher chance of getting pregnant. Put those puppies in. Like, I am ready. I have been ready. So he ended up telling me that we could do 2, and so I said, okay, I'm good with 2. And he's like, I think once they're in there, they will stick. Everything's cleaned out, your uterus is healthy, we are ready to go. And I was just so excited. As soon as he put those in, he's like, okay, it's in God's hands now. And he's like, how's it feel to be a pregnant mama? He's like, from here on out, I consider you pregnant, but it's whether you stay pregnant or not. So we then just had to wait, and this is the absolute hardest part. I am not a patient person. I've never been a patient person. I try my hardest to be a patient person. My husband is very patient, and he helps me when it comes to my patients, which works out perfect. But he ended up having to work a lot during this time, and you're on bed rest once you come back for 3 days. And my aunt took care of me, and then we went in to see if it stuck, and it did not. So it was a very hard time. At that point, I was like, okay, let's go over cost again. I have eggs left. Let's do this again. How soon can I do this? I want to be pregnant. I am ready. And so we went over cost. They just added more because once they already retrieve your eggs, that's the hardest part. But once you have them already frozen, then you just gotta pay for the thawing process and for him to put the embryo in. So it was a lot cheaper. I'm not definitely not cheap. That was about $8,000. So then they added that to what we already owed, and we put a little bit down, and we went in to do it again. And then you, at that point, have to calm your body down if you are ovulating on your own, and make sure that your hormone levels are in check. Do an ultrasound, make sure your uterus is ready. And then I went in and they put the embryos in, and at that point we kind of went over the same thing, because we had 3 eggs left, or 3 embryos left, excuse me. We had 3 embryos left, and I wanted 3 put in because there was 3 left and there would only be 1 left, and I didn't want to pay another $8,000 to possibly have that one, you know, rethawed and have it not make it, because even if your eggs thaw and none of them make it, you still owe this money. So it can just be really hard. It can be a really tough process, and there's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of mixed emotions. And going in on that day, I knew I wanted 3 and he wouldn't do it. So I was kind of upset, but I was trying to stay calm, and I kept telling myself, you know, be positive, this is gonna work. You know in your heart this is gonna work. You would not have put this much money, time, and effort into this if you did not think that this was not going to work. And you know, at that point I felt kind of bad, because I feel like I talked my husband into the second round, and he was just thinking, you know, let's do adoption, let's start that process. And I'm like, no, I want to keep trying IVF. I'm feeling it's gonna work. So in my thoughts, I'm thinking I would feel so guilty if I just spent 20 grand and this didn't work. And then now we gotta find the money to adopt if we want to adopt, because having a family, you know, if you can't get pregnant easily on your own in any other form, is highly expensive and emotional and just draining. And so in the end though, it would be worth it. And so I just kept pushing on, pushing forward, and we put 2 embryos in, and then we waited, and my husband's grandmother at this point had passed away, and I am on bed rest, so he went to Tennessee to be with his family, and my aunt came over and took care of me again during this time. And I didn't feel pregnant, didn't think I was pregnant, and was just very saddened and disheartened. And when we went in to get checked that next week through lab work, I found out that I was pregnant, and my levels were really low, so they were going to see if they doubled within 48 hours, and I did more lab work and they tripled. So then at that point they were climbing really high really fast, and I was like, oh, does this mean I'm having more than one? When do we get to find out? So I was pretty excited and nervous, and I could not believe I was finally pregnant. So I couldn't believe it. And when I told my husband when he got home, he was shocked, and then he was just thrilled. He was like, you know, the money doesn't matter. He's like, don't, you know, worry about paying back the loans. He's like, don't stress about it, just focus on the pregnancy, enjoy yourself, enjoy being pregnant. And I couldn't believe it. I just thought, there was just no worries in my mind at that point, because we had never been pregnant, and that was our difficulty, was getting pregnant. And so now that we were pregnant, I was just elated. I thought, now that we're pregnant, nothing can go wrong. And went in for our next ultrasound, and I want to say we were about 12 and a half weeks, because we were almost through the first trimester, and found out. I went by myself that day because all my ultrasounds have been going good, and when they just saw one baby, and so I went by myself that day, and the next thing I knew, there was more than one baby in the ultrasound. There was not one, not two, but three. And I was like, go, oh my God, no. At that point I was shocked, scared, and I couldn't believe it. And I was like, what? And I just remember like leaning forward, looking at the screen, and I looked at him, and the look on his face was like, oh no. And I'm like, what's wrong? Because there's three? Are you worried because there's three? And he was like, Cassie. And he was like, Cassie, it's not good. It's not good news. And I couldn't, comprehend what was he getting at. And he was just like, yes, Cassie, there's three. Let me check again. And he checked again, and I thought, there's not more than three. That's not what he's checking for. He's checking for something else. And he's like, Cassie, there's no heartbeats. And I said, no, check again. What, check again. There's three of them. One of them has to be okay. One of them has to have heartbeats. And I just remember him being, he just grabbed my knee, and he's like, it'll be okay. We'll get through this. I'll help you. But I checked, and none of them have any heartbeats. So to find out, thinking one moment, I guess, you were pregnant with one baby, one miracle baby, and then to find out you were pregnant with three little miracles. And to kind of grasp for a split second, oh wow, I'm gonna be a mom of triplets, a mom of multiples. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to call my husband and tell him. He's gonna be shocked. I can't wait to see his reaction. To, in the same second, find out that there's no heartbeat. Just broke my heart, and I didn't know how to comprehend it, didn't know what to do, felt like I was in a fog, felt like it was a dream. I just remember, how do I get dressed, after the ultrasound, I couldn't even remember how to put my pants back on. And once I did that, I just remember like leaning up against the wall, sliding down the wall, and just thinking, this isn't real. This isn't happening to me. I thought our only issue was getting pregnant, not staying pregnant. And I just kept thinking, what am I going to say to my husband? That, what am I going to say? We were pregnant with triplets, and then we lost all of them. I didn't want to call him. I didn't know how to tell him. He was at work. I was by myself. I didn't know how I was going to drive home. So I go out into the hallway, and I want to say almost every single person on their staff and the doctor were standing there, and it looks like they were about ready just to, hold me up, but I was leaning against the wall. And I remember one of them had water, one of them grabbed my hand, the doctor had rubbing my back, and they all took me into this room, sat me down, asked me for my family's phone numbers. They were going to call them for me, and I told them that I wanted to call my husband first, so they were going to call my aunt and have her come get me, and they didn't want me driving. So I just remember sitting in this room and seeing all these baby magazines and thinking, when, you know, I'm not gonna get to meet my baby now, when is this gonna happen for me? And it just felt so unreal, so surreal. I did not believe that this could ever happen. And I wouldn't have guessed in my wildest dreams that in the same day that I found out we were having triplets would be the same day I found out that they had no heartbeats. I was very scared to call my husband, and I called him. I couldn't get a hold of him, so I had to page him, and he called me back, and he, I guess, was just, what's wrong? Why are you calling me from the doctor's office? And I said, we're having, I found out we were having triplets. And he said, and then he's like, triplets? And I, at that point, was like, but they have no heartbeats. And I just remember him going, what, triplets? Triplets? And he's like freaking out about the fact that they're triplets, which I was so excited to tell him, but then I had to tell him that they had no heartbeats, and I just remember like just crying so hard he couldn't understand me and saying, no, but they don't have any heartbeats. And he just was not grasping the fact that they were triplets, let alone the fact that they didn't have any heartbeats. So I just remember crying, and just, he's silent and he doesn't know what to say. And then I remember him saying, I'm gonna leave work, I'm leaving work now, and I'm gonna come get you. And I said, okay. And then he called me back and said, my mom and your aunt already left, they're on their way to come get you. I'm just leaving work, I'll meet you at home. And he's like, I don't want them to wait for me because it'll take them, another hour to get there. And so I understood why. Well, they came and the doctor explained to them what happened. And I just remember getting in my car, my aunt was driving and Ryan's mom was following behind us. And they were like, I need to stop, I have to use the restroom. So we stopped at Taco Bell, and they were trying to get me to drink something, eat something. And I just remember like looking around and seeing people laughing and smiling and like enjoying their everyday lives, thinking, how did this happen to me? When am I going to experience the happiness that they're experiencing? And then I wonder if they've ever been through something like this. And I just was in a dream. And I just felt like at that moment nobody understood what I was going through. Nobody felt my pain. And I was just angry, hurt, upset, saddened. And I didn't believe it all at the same time. So there were so many emotions running through me. And I remember getting home and falling into my husband's arms thinking, I'm so sorry I let you down. And I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. And he didn't care, about the cost or the fact that I let him down. The only thing he cared about was if I was gonna be okay. And in that moment, that's all I wanted. All I wanted was him, just to hold me. And I just remember saying to him, it hurts so bad. It hurts. And just thinking about that feeling, it just makes me sick to my stomach, sick inside. I remember it all over again. Oh, and I miss my babies. I do. I miss them. Which is crazy to like miss somebody you've never met. But you do. When you go through a loss, you know, you miss the thought of them. You miss them. And so, sorry guys, this is really emotional. And I don't talk about it a lot, and when I do, it just brings all of the emotions back up, and it's like opens the floodgates for sure. But I knew telling my story that it would be emotional, and a lot of women can relate, and a lot of women suffer in silence. And I would love to hear other people's stories. So if you would just tell me if you went through something similar, or you know, a loss or suffered in silence, please leave in the comments below or email me. I would love to hear your stories. You know, maybe even leaving your story in the comments below, you will meet somebody who went through a similar thing in your area, and you guys could get into contact. And it's always a really hard thing to go through, but it would have been way easier if I would have had somebody or anybody who was in the same boat as me, who understood my feelings, and I guess could have helped me through the grieving process. Sorry to end on such an emotional note, but this video is already really long, and I would love for you to join me again when I put up my next video. Don't forget to subscribe below, and I hope to see you soon to tell you what happened next. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.